live streaming. Wait. Yep, we are. And it's still working on this side, but it says we're already live streaming. There we go.
Yeah, it's saying it's live on my
Awesome.
side.
Okay. Yep, and I'm going to record. I don't see my record button. There it is. There we go. Good morning, Brenda, Hammon. It's so exciting to be able to have this conversation once again and to celebrate. Oh my goodness, to celebrate you and the work that you've done in the world. You have written a lot of books, and you've overseen a lot of books. Yeah. Let's talk about the books that you have done. I know that you did the Sacred Heart Rising series. That was pretty amazing. Do you want to share with the audience what that looked like?
The Sacred Hearts Rising series was 4 books, and it was stories about women and men that have overcome odds. So there's sexual abuse, there's cutting, there's suicide, there's abandonment, there's all kinds of dysfunctions that we all kind of get thrown into as kids or as adults. And everybody wrote their stories of, yes, this happened to me, but this is now how I'm dealing with it and getting out of the muck and the mire of it. So it started out as just 1 book, and then it morphed into 4. So after we did the first book and the authors all shared their stories, I thought, okay, this is it. There can't be anything else in there. And then more stuff kept coming up and more stuff kept coming up. So yeah, it became a 4-part series, and it did a lot of healing for all of the authors and a lot of healing for other people who were still stuck in the trauma of their stories, and that they could read that, oh, this is what this person did to get out of it, and I can do that too. So it was a very healing process. Yeah.
Beautiful. Don't you think, because I did a couple of series, We Choose to Thrive series was mine when I first started publishing. Don't you feel that when women write their stories, or when any of us write our stories, really, because you had men in your books as well, that there's something that happens, there's something transformational that happens when they release that story out to the world, and it's read by others, but there's something on an individual basis that happens.
Yeah, it's almost like a switch. You go from being in the victim mode into a survivor mode. And I actually hate that analogy, but that's really the best way to say it is. And I can use myself. Like, when I wrote the story about what had happened to me, it brought it forward. It came out of the recesses of my mind, and it brought it forward, and it gave it authenticity as to, yes, this actually did happen to me. And then you were able to deal with it. You were able to look at it, dissect it, and deal with it. And I wrote the story in the first book about losing our granddaughter when she was 7 days old. And I wrote it from a grandmother's perspective, because my daughter, she's the one who lost the child, but it was equally as profound being a grandmother losing that little one. So I wrote her story, and actually her story is but push forward the books, because I didn't want her to ever be forgotten. She didn't have a chance to have a footprint in the world. We all leave footprints wherever we go, and she didn't have a chance to even have that. So I wrote her story, and that gave her her first footprint. And then from there, we went to Mexico, and we supported a children's home, and we put money into a shade structure that is in honor of her. So she has a legacy already. And that's what the books do. They propel you forward into a more positive way of life.
Absolutely. I find that many of the women that were in the book series that I did, and I know the same for you because I've been watching, the progress,
Yeah.
is that many of them go on, many that participate, it's like it just releases it. Because in the
Hmm.
writing of it, there's something that happens because you're able to put things in a different perspective. When you have to put pen to
Yeah.
paper, there's a big difference in what happens. And many of these women
Yeah.
are now serving in the world in just incredible ways because they were able to heal and they could move on from the shame, the guilt, the fear, the everything that happens
Yeah.
when
Yeah.
when we've encountered those kind of things.
Oh yeah. And like I've told a lot of the women, and it was women who asked me, but I don't want to share it to the world. I said, just write it down. Write it down, get it out of your mind, start moving it out, and then burn it.
Mhm.
You don't have to publish it in a book, and you shout it from the rooftops, but you can start the process of just doing the brain dump of everything. And when I first started, I thought, oh, I'll do that and it'll only be, 50 pages. Turned out to be 670 pages. God, okay, I guess I had a lot to dump, but that's the thing is, you know, no matter who you are, just start writing about it. Don't go back and edit. Don't go back and read it. Just write it, get it out, and then have a ceremony and just say, this no longer serves me, and burn it.
Beautiful. That is beautiful. Yes,
Yeah.
I think that's it's fascinating what happens with that process. And
Yes.
kudos to you for, standing strong for those that needed to hear the message or
Yes.
participated in the message. Because when I did my book, The Woman I Love, I found that men and women alike were reaching out to me, that people I didn't know, and just
Hmm.
saying, wow, thank you. Now I understand what happened to my mom. Now I
Yeah.
understand why my wife reacts the way she does. And
Oh yeah.
and and it's fascinating because it gave others a broader understanding of the journey that that
Yeah.
that we go
Well, and
through.
it's generational. Abuse is generational.
It is.
And you may think, well, this only happened to me. No, it happened probably to one of your parents or your grandparents and so on down the line. So when you acknowledge it and you start dealing with it, then you're healing the future generations
Right.
because now they know what has happened, and they can avoid things. And that's what I did for my daughters and my granddaughters, is sharing my story brought it out, and now they understood why I was obsessively protective of them.
Right.
Like they did. They always said, "You're so protective." Well, there was a reason I was so protective, because I wanted to make sure that it never happened to them. You know,
Absolutely.
and you swing from one side to the other. Yeah, I was probably overprotective, but I grounded one for 2 years because you know, but I was protective. So yeah,
Well, and we are. And our our kids have to go through that, but at least they're not going through the flip side of that.
yeah. They're not going
Uh,
through what I went through. They're going through different things, but yeah.
so now fast forward a number of years later since you started that whole process. Hold up what the book that we're here to talk about.
Oh, this is
This,
the book that is creating so much buzz right now. And it's Crossing the Centuries, Connecting to 165 Spirit and Energies of My Ancestral Tree. And it became more than I ever thought that it would be. When I first started writing it, I thought, oh, I'm just going to write, I'm going to do our family genealogy. And I did meticulous research for over 20 years, and I could never figure out how to write it. I didn't want to write it like other genealogy books of, so and so married so and had this many kids, and then it goes on and on. I wanted to know them. I wanted to experience their life with them. I wanted more. So it took a while to figure out how to write it. And then while I was writing it, then it morphed into this. And it was a bit scary releasing this book, because very few people knew that side of me. like they didn't know that I was a psychic intuitive medium. They didn't know that I cross over dead people into the light. Nobody knew a lot of that. Like, there's a handful of people knew, but nobody really knew. So when I started connecting with my dead ancestors that have been dead for about 200 years, I thought, oh, okay, so now how does this look? And my editor, I have to give my editor some kudos because she looked at the book and she said, oh, there's so much more. And I'm going, oh no.
Oh
And she did,
no, do
oh
we have
no.
to?
Yes. And she says, well, people want to know how and why and when you did it and that and all this. And I just like, I had to do an editorial for her. And I said, working with her was like I was pulling my hair down my head, running down the driveway, buck naked, with the sheer enormous task that she had given me of you need to tell people about who you are. Yeah, it was intense. It was
Fascinating.
crazy.
So this book has received awards already, hasn't it?
It has received awards, and I was quite surprised because it's a book that has no genre.
Right. I know
You
picking
know,
categories was like, oh my God, how am I going to do this?
yeah, because it was, it's history, but it's not. It's genealogy, but it's not. It's spiritualism, but it's not. It's just this whole mesh of genres all put together. It's a memoir, but it's not, so yeah. So I was really, really surprised when it won an award and they said, like, it's an extraordinary, unique book that is standing out and we needed to honor that. And I was just like,
that is fascinating and beautiful because
yeah,
because I know that when I uploaded the book, being able to find find the right categories to put it in, it was like, oh my goodness, there's nothing that describes this book, you
there
know.
is no,
And so we did the best we could, but it was like, oh my goodness, how do we do a fair shake so this book's going to be seen, you know?
yeah, yeah.
That's
And that was, like I say, that's why I was really surprised when when it won an award because I'm going like, and you got to put categories in when you're doing it too. And I'm going, okay, well, I don't know where it's going to fit. Like, so I just kind of picked some and I went, okay, like, no, it's a Hail Mary. So, but
oh.
yeah, it's amazing.
I, when
Yeah.
I was telling one of my friends, she's also a psychic medium, and she goes, but she has in her past worked in the movie industry.
Hmm.
And she said, oh my God, that would make a fabulous movie. We should get her connected. And,
Yeah.
so that's the initial reaction because it is such a unique way to really learn about ancestry and learn about yourself.
Well, and to learn about history, we have a tendency to forget,
We do.
and yes, there's history in it, but it's history that's evolved or revolved around their lives. Like, the War of 1812 and the Civil War. It's about them being in it and their experiences of what it felt like instead of reading about, the Civil War and so marched down here and they had a battle here. It's them actually in the scene of the things that are happening to them.
And in the pages of this book, you're having actual conversations with these individuals.
I'm having actual conversations with them. Stephen is my third great grandfather, and he's the one that I chose to seek out first, and because he's the one that I knew, I kind of knew the furthest back that I could go with all kinds of documented evidence. So I started calling him in, and I'm going, I don't know if this is going to work, but let's just see, because I could sense a few of them, but not that far back. And then all of a sudden he came and he sat on the corner of my desk and his one leg was swinging back and forth. And then we started to talk and it just went from there. And as he talked, then I, I'll say it this way. He must have told everybody else on the other side that this was happening, because when I connected with his father was quite shy and reserved. And I said, I have talked to your son already. And it was like, you have? I said, yes, I have. So it's okay. You can talk to me,
You can't talk to me.
yeah, you can talk to me. And so and it did, it just kept going and going and going. And I had a list of all of them, and those that came forward, are in the book, and some didn't come forward. Some never did connect back, and that's okay. So yes, but we had conversations and I could feel them, I could sense them. Sometimes I could see them and smell them, and yeah, it was quite an experience. Let's put it that
So
way.
in your journey in writing this book, what did it do for you on a personal level?
I wanted to know who I was. Like I knew, you know, you watch Finding Your Roots and who do you think you are and all of those shows and I really wanted to know who I was, but I wanted to know who they were. Like where do some of my traits come from? You know, and health wise, you want to know what is in your DNA for health. Like, heart disease and sugar diabetes is on my dad's side. That's prevalent. And this book is focusing on my dad's side right now. But then it'll go on to my mother's side and that sort of stuff. But if finding that information prepares you for making sure that you have a better lifestyle or a better health style than they did. And we have ways to fix all of that sort of stuff. But not knowing what is lurking in your DNA is, sometimes, yeah, it's a bit scary.
It
So I
is,
wanted to know
and
that. And
it's such a
yeah,
beautiful way to find out about it is now you
yeah,
have kind of a relationship with these individuals. You understand their personality and the things that
yes,
made them who they were and
yeah,
the things that they encountered in their lives. And a number of them actually fought in the war, different wars,
yeah.
and wow.
Mm-hmm.
And there was the one that I can't remember his name, but um he passed on at a very young age and never even got to be
George.
married. George, yeah, never had a
Yeah,
family.
George.
Amazing.
No. Yeah, he wanted to join the war, the Civil War, because his brothers were in the war and he was still too young. So he lied about his age and joined the war. And within 7 months, he was dead, and he died from remittance disease, which is, you know, lack of sanitation is basically it, because they didn't have water. They didn't have access to clean water. They didn't have access to go wash your hands after you've fought and bloodied yourself and everything else. So, yeah, it was when he came forward, it was quite sad in one way and quite funny in another, because he came forward and he came in his Union outfit covered with bugs and worms crawling, and I'm looking up and I'm going, okay, if you think that's going to scare me, forget it. Actually worse than that, and so that was part of his personality, is he was a bit of a jokester and whatnot. And he said to me, he says, why do you want to know about me? I said, well, I want to know about you. I want to know about who you were and whatnot. And his last statement was, he says, I'm forgotten. Like, my family's gone. Nobody remembers me. I had no wife. I have no children to carry on. He says, heck, I even died a virgin, and I thought,
Mm.
so here's this young man who gave his life to fight for his country, to fight for the belief of freedom for, the slaves that were happening at that time. And he stood up and he fought for that and he died for that, and he was forgotten.
Right. Well, and
And
I think there's many that have been, you
there's
know,
been thousands and thousands of them that have been forgotten. And
right.
and bringing George's story to life is going to bring all of the other ones to life also,
Mhm.
because people were going to think, oh, did I have somebody that fought in the civil, oh, and now they're all going to be remembered.
It's so surprising how much we do not know and that we never pass on to the generations that follow us that, oftentimes we don't even know what was the past for our own parents, let alone for
No,
grandparents. And that's a real shame because we keep repeating history that way,
yeah,
and generational abuse, generational health issues, generational,
Yeah.
all kinds of things. And generational good qualities are not understood.
Yeah. No, it was a back then it was a life of common sense and survival,
Right.
and when they were on some of them that went on the Oregon Trail, you know, people were dying and children were orphaned and things like that. And my editor said to me, she says, this is really harsh. I said, this is what happened, and people couldn't pick up other people's children that were orphaned and look after them because they barely had enough food to feed their own families. So, if there was any orphan children, and there was lots, they would be dropped off at the next fort, and so, and fend
What
for
happened to
yourself
them
type.
then? Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, and fend for yourself. So it was a very brutal time,
Mhm.
but a very necessary time because that's the time that they lived in. That's what it was,
Right.
so yeah.
Amazing. So going forward, what's in the cards for going forward for you?
I'm starting to work on the next book, and it will have my grandmother is Scottish, and and my grandfather came from Kansas. Um, and they were like, my grandmother is like a hot little banty rooster, so she was pretty miffed that she didn't get put into this book, and was making her presence known about that. So I had to smooth some feathers on that side.
Hey,
So,
what about me?
well, and that's exactly it. Like, she was really PO'd that she wasn't in this. And I said, look, there's a method to how I have to write the books. You just can't be willy-nilly. So yes, you're going to be in the next book. And so I'll be working on,
Fine.
yeah, Scotland and the coal mines. And there's a lot of mining disasters. And I mean, kids as young as 12, 10 and 12 were pit pony drivers in the coal mines. I mean, think about that.
Mm.
Your 10-year-old is going into the coal mines driving a Shetland pony to haul out coal. That was their job at age 10.
Oh,
So it's and then the Jacobites are going to, or the Jacobites, however you want to pronounce it, are going to be probably in there because that was around that era that my ancestors were living in Scotland, and so that's gonna come forward. There'll be probably some more of people in the United States because we have Connecticut and Virginia. So unfortunately, I'm probably going to find a few slave owners back in there, but
that's
that's
part of
part
our
of history,
history. Yeah.
and
History.
talk about, share their stories if they come forward. So that's, yeah.
Beautiful.
So it's
Beautiful.
kind of, and then there'll be a book 3, and it'll be about my mother's side, and and you got to hire a genealogist to go into find all of those records. So it's not an inexpensive project to do a book, that's for sure.
No, no, I know it is not. So I'm really say congratulations, and for anybody that's watching the video, the link is in the stream, or in the comments there for these interviews. So Brenda, I'm so delighted to be able to work with you on this and see it
Yes.
come to light, and see the really broadening of our minds as to a whole new way of really recognizing what comes before us and how that translates into the shape of our own lives.
Yeah, that's for sure. And like I said to my editor, she stuck with me. And Becky, I think you're stuck with me for all of the next books that are going to be coming forward. And
That's the
there'll
way
be
it
quite a
is.
few.
That's the way well, it's my honor because I was kind of going back through, because I do a showcase on my website. I was going back through, wow, look at all these books, that we've done together. It's been pretty
Yeah.
amazing. Yeah.
Yeah. This is my 9th book. And I think you have been with me for 8 of them.
Yeah, I think so. I was surprised. We just work through the years and you don't
Yeah.
give it a lot of thought, and all of a sudden I'm putting things together and going like, wow, we've done a lot together.
We've done a lot together,
Yeah,
an awful
awesome.
lot together. Yeah, because I think I started with my first series, breaking down the walls of silence.
Right.
And
Yeah.
And there was 3 books in that. And then we went to the anthology, and then I was in your book, and then I was in other anthology books, and then these books, and then the humor book of the COVID book of all of the humorous stories and that sort of stuff. So I call it the COVID book, but it has
Ah,
nothing to do with COVID, but it was written during that time. So yeah,
yeah, that was a fun book. That was really fun. Well, I've
yeah.
enjoyed this interview and keep me posted because I like to send out emails to the people that are in my following
Hmm.
and let them know, you're getting awards for this book and
Yes.
kind of share it out because I think that's part of the success of any book coming out to the world is getting people aware that it's even available.
Yes. And it would make a good movie.
It would. Yeah.
It would. It would
I
make a good, it would actually
oh,
make a really good TV series.
it would. Yeah. So
Yeah.
I will talk to her because she's not doing that anymore, but I know she still has connections.
Yeah. Yeah. So it'll be, I always thought about that. Like, can you imagine like walking on the Oregon Trail of dust and the bugs and the mites and the black flies eating at you and picking up buffalo dung to cook your food with? Like, it's just like, it's mind blowing.
It is, it truly
We've got
is.
it easy nowadays.
Oh, we're pansies in comparison.
Yeah, we are. So,
Uh,
well, thank you very
well,
much for this, Becky.
congratulations, and I will share the links, share it out. It's already been shared, podcasts, but make sure that it went live on yours. Otherwise, we can
Okay.
upload it right to your social media as well. And
Yep, we will do that.
congratulations.
Thank you very much.
All right, very good. I gotta figure out how to get this stopped. Ta-da.